Magandang araw po. Ako po si Joey Ayala, singer-songwriter. I want to share with you how the idea of precolonial music has informed what I do in present day. My first contact with precolonial music was when I was a little boy, 6 or 7 years old. My mom showed me an instrument and she called it the Devil Chaser. She did not use the native name, which I know now to be Bungkaka from the Cordillera, from Benguet. But she told me it was a Devil Chaser. Devil Chaser. And because, alam nyo, pag bata, when you're a little boy and you're afraid of the dark, to be given something called a Devil Chaser changes. Total change. Nawala yung takot ko sa dilim. My fear of the dark dispelled. All I had to do was play the Devil Chaser. And my fear of the dark vanished. And from that point on, I realized that sound had a function. Not in so many words, but I knew I had a psychological reaction to the sound. Devil Chaser. Remove fear of devils and demons. I have no idea if that is the equivalent significance of this instrument where the instrument is considered indigenous. Benguet, Cordillera, Kalinga areas. And I suppose in any place where there is bamboo, you will have instruments like this. And here's another one. This is called a kubing. This is from Mindanao, the southern island of Philippines. This was given to me by my sister, Sister Monica, when I was recording my first album. And this was in 1980 or 81. I think it was 81. I'll give you a little close-up of the carving of this instrument, because look at that beautiful carving. Yeah. I enhanced a section of it, and that's what you see in the background, the carving. So these two bamboo instruments I have used in my recordings. Totally out of context, you might say. Yes, that's true. Because as a writer, I looked at these instruments not because of their significance to culture, but their significance to me as a writer. So I'm more concerned with function and how to use in my creations. I do not claim to be playing traditional music, although I will claim to producing traditional sentiment. My use of music is traditional. It is used to express what I feel, what I think. And I think throughout the ages, that has always been the function of music, to express something. And that is the indigenous spirit for me, who cannot claim a famous tribe unless you count Ilocano, Chinese, and Portuguese, and maybe a little Indian as tribe. So this is a gray area when we use words, indigenous, tribe, ethnic, very confusing discussion sometimes. And perhaps it's best to say genetically, I am 25% Chinese, 50% Ilocano, and 25% a mix of, I don't know, Portuguese, Indian, who knows? Who knows? My first encounter with an instrument that would be played in a pre-colonial setting for a huge group would be the agong. Let me set it up. The agong would normally be hung from a tree, but since I'm inside the room, I don't have a tree in here. I will hang it from. There you go. So normally you'd hit it a lot harder because you'd be outdoor, but here, since our microphone is pretty close, I love this sound. The first time I heard this sound, automatically it was something in my stomach. Something in my stomach responded, and I felt, now this is real. How come I don't hear this on the radio? And I decided, if I'm gonna be true to my artistic situation, being in the Philippines and being a composer, I will try to use this instrument. And I did. Although normally this would be one of the instruments you'd play loudly. You know? And you'd be have two of these, three, as much as 10 or 12 hanging in an array, you know, and there would be dance, because you cannot play these instruments without dancing. You have to play with your whole body, you know, just like just like a rock guitar. You have to play with your whole body, you know. You can't really isolate the music from the dance. Heavy. The smaller instruments, if you want an idea of what pre-colonial music might be like, just imagine yourself without electricity, no TV, no cell phone, no radio, no devices, and these are the devices at hand. So what would you be doing? You'd be showing off. You'd be entertaining your family, your friends, your neighbors. And that, I believe, is the pre-colonial spirit. It's actually pre-electricity spirit. It might be more practical to think of colonization as a technical thing rather than people colonizing people. It's more of technology coming in and changing the way people live, changing culture. Cultural change, majority of cultural change probably comes from technological change, because people will do what works, people will do what's practical, people will do what's convenient. And if there's a new piece of technology that's accessible, people will use it and absorb it and blend it with other things they're already doing. And I found myself doing that as a singer-songwriter. I found myself picking up these indigenous instruments and blending them into my subconscious programming as a musician. When I say subconscious programming, I mean the things that are already inside my body. Classical music, Beethoven, Brahms, these are the things that I was hearing when I was growing up. I was listening to Ravi Shankar, Indian music. I was listening to a few African chants from the records of my mother and father. Broadway musicals, Peter Pan the musical, Beethoven. And then in the mid-80s, I asked my friend to buy me something from the mountains because she was a researcher. Her name was Marily Fernandez, and she would spend a lot of time doing research among the people in the mountains. And I asked her to buy me something I could use, and she brought down this instrument, which became a huge part of my image as a performer. Primarily, probably because it looked very different from the normal guitar that people are used to. So in the late 80s, when pictures of me started coming out in the national publications, it was always holding this instrument. The name that was given is hegalong. Hegalong. And it's a Tiboli word. But in the 90s, I met this guy named Hans Brandeis, a German fellow who's married to a Filipina and who is enamored with two-string lutes. He probably has the biggest collection of two-string lutes in the world. In any case, one day he showed up here in Quezon City and he asked for permission to photograph this hegalong for his book. I said, sure. And while he was photographing, he was telling me, Joey, it's not really a hegalong. It shocked me. What? I've been telling people all the while, this is a hegalong. It comes from the Tiboli people. And he said something like, that's a Tiboli word, not true, hegalong. But this instrument itself is not a hegalong. Neither is it a kuglong, a faglong, and the other kutsapi. These are the other words for two-string lute in the Philippines. It is none of these because it is an innovation already. And he pointed out to me the headstock, this part. It is the only two-string lute he has seen that faces the audience, see? As a modern guitar headstock would, because the traditional lutes are all constructed sideways like that. Let me show you. This is the original look of a hegalong from the Tiboli people. Gawa ito. This is made by Mapil. See? The edge is facing the audience. Now, this hegalong that is not a hegalong, the flat side is facing the audience. The edge is facing the audience. And then he also pointed out that look at the original hegalong, no waist. The one I have has a waist. So apparently the maker of this was simulating a six-string guitar. An attempt to move forward technologically. And look at the hair. He said, look at the hair. Okay, more tangled up here. Look at the hair. Apparently it's trying to simulate the tuning pegs of a guitar. 6 tufts of hair. Whereas the original hegalong, no hair sticking out on the side, because of the alignment of the head. Now, serendipitously, luckily, fortunately for me, the head is aligned the way guitar's head is aligned. And it became easy to attach these tuning gears, which I got from an extremely old Fender bass, I think. And the pickups I slapped onto the body. And I asked a luthier to create frets with guitar wire. Because originally, I think the original frets were some kind of, they were not even hardwood, they were softwood. And after a month or two of experimenting, the strings would wear down the wood and I got frustrated. So I asked a luthier to make frets with guitar wire. And of course, this instrument has undergone the most surgeries and experiments of all the instruments that have gone through me. This is the most tortured instrument. The original back of this had a hinge. A hinge. No electronics, of course. It had a hinge. And apparently it was used like a sort of lunchbox. If you go for a long walk, you could put things inside it and use it as a bag. So as I'm talking, I'm showing you pictures in the background, and I hope you enjoy the detail and notice the carvings, the beads. These are actually made of plastic, but apparently they probably look like the original money beads, but they're not. They're plastic, recycled rulers and toothbrushes and ball pens. So this is my hegalong, which is not a hegalong, but it was carved up in the Tiboli area. This is the real hegalong. And all my attempts at making this instrument compatible with the modern stage made me realize that technology really changes culture. Because people will naturally try to use what is more efficient, what is more convenient, what has a greater survival value. and that applies to music. And if you want to know what pre-colonial music might be like, if you're a musician, imagine yourself in a place where there's no electricity, with instruments that are handmade, very unique, not standardized. And what will you do with the instrument? You entertain your family, you tell stories, you have conversations, you imitate the bird, and then you, even with the dance, you imitate the bird, you imitate the monkey, you imitate the horse. And that's what it's like. You are a human being in the olden days, and that, I believe, is what pre-colonial music is like. Thank you very much for listening and for inviting me here.